This is a joint meeting between Economic and Workforce Development and Finance. I want to thank Senator Harkins for helping me kind of lead this and kind of put it together this morning. As just a little background on this and the purpose of the meeting, before COVID, before this last 4 years kind of turned into something we weren't expecting, one of the big things that we came into this session looking to do was increase the labor participation rate. And the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor felt very strongly that what we were doing in the state was not leading to the outcomes we would like to see. And so we started looking at workforce in the state as a whole, and we learned that we had multi-millions of dollars going into workforce development every year, but we really didn't have any oversight. We really didn't have a plan, and we didn't really have anybody who was leading that path. And there's a quote by a gentleman named Zig Ziglar that says that if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. And we were doing a very good job at just that. We were aiming at nothing and hitting it pretty well. And so we were able to put some legislation through the first year and with the help of my House colleagues, and we set up the Office of Workforce Development, and we were able to do that through the existing SWIB appropriation. So we set up another layer of oversight without adding any new funding. And through that, the governor appointed Patrick Sullivan to be the chairman of SWIB. And shortly after that, the executive committee was set up, and we went after the best candidate to lead that the new office. We had many good applicants for that position. And one of the things that made us go with the applicant who is the lead now, Ryan Miller, is that his experience in analytics and in data was excellent. And he basically came to this without any preconceived notions or any thoughts of how we had done things before. And we wanted to give him basically a whiteboard where he could come into it and do his own thing with it. And so he's done a good job getting it started. He has now been in place for a little over a year and a half, just barely, I think about maybe 20 months or so. And so what we're going to do this morning is I'm going to have Ryan and his team give us an update on what they've been doing, how successful that's been, what they have planned for the future. And also they're going to touch a little bit on the career coach program, which we initiated last year with some legislation, which I feel has also been fantastic. So we're going to turn it over to him, and I'm going to ask the senators, if you would, we're going to try to move quickly because they're going to give a lot of information today. And if you wouldn't mind, at the end, we're going to hold and have some questions at the end, if you wouldn't mind doing that so they can run through their presentation. Ryan, you want?
For time, for your focus, for your attention. I appreciate the opportunity to come this morning to share what we've done in the first 21 months of our existence, try to describe our vision for the state of Mississippi, and certainly as it relates to workforce. Senator Parker, thank you for organizing this, and Senator Harkins also, all of you for making time to come out of your busy schedules to participate in this conversation with us. I think it's important context, and I try to remind myself of this every morning when I drive to work, that 21 months ago, there was no Office of Workforce Development. There wasn't an Accelerate Mississippi. 21 months ago, the office existed in legislative language, but for all intents and purposes, in moving forward and being productive, the office did not exist. I was given the opportunity, as Senator Parker described, to be the first executive director of this office, and it was an honor and a privilege to serve and to continue to serve. In fact, it's an honor that I enjoy and take very seriously even today, but it's a reminder for me that in 21 months' time, we've achieved a great deal, and it's my duty to try to do a better job explaining and communicating with you as to the progress that we've made. When I took on this role, it was very clear to me. The governor made it very clear, the Lieutenant Governor, Mr. Hosemann made it very clear, the Speaker of the House, the entire legislature, and dare I say even communities and partners out in the state of Mississippi made it very clear there are high expectations for this office, high expectations to make progress in the state of Mississippi. And I can tell you that the first number of expectations that I confronted were simply that we needed better organization. We needed to be a lens through which we would focus all workforce strategy development and deployment. We needed to do it in a much more focused approach and be that lens. So there was an expectation that we would be organized, better organized. There was an expectation that we'd be more transparent with dollars that we have been given responsibility for by you, to ensure that those dollars are being spent appropriately and effectively, more importantly, effectively, to actually moving the needle and helping more Mississippians find opportunities in career paths that we know are very, very important. We also know that you have an expectation of identifying and eliminating waste. So where there are programs that may have been successful in the past, but no longer successful, we have to make tough decisions and try to find ways to improve, to identify and eliminate wasteful spending or wasteful programs. We have been hard at work trying to do that. And more importantly, and finally, in those expectations, that we would lean into those programs of high value. And when I say high value, what I define that as programs that do a better job of helping Mississippians find access to careers with higher trajectory earning, and those careers that we know our industry partners desperately need people to fill. Those were the expectations that were communicated to me, and those are expectations that we in our office take very seriously and own today, and do everything we can to move forward to try to meet and exceed those expectations. Now, in the first 21 months, I've been able to identify, and this is the analogy that I'll use, and forgive me for the simplicity of it, but it's literally like building an airplane as we're flying that airplane. This is a brand new office from scratch that you all have entrusted to us, and I needed to find the right people and teammates that could help me do this and help me attack those expectations with great vigor and energy. And I'm excited to tell you that I've got an incredible team, some of whom you'll hear from today, and some of whom are out throughout the state of Mississippi even now, our ecosystem coordinators that are there living out through our 8 ecosystem structure, that are living in communities that are able to respond quickly with agility and flexibility, that when there is a need in your district or in your community, in your neighborhood, that Accelerate Mississippi can respond effectively. And I have an incredible team here today that you'll get to hear from as well, because with those expectations, we wanted to be organized as to how we attacked them. So we identified 3 different pillars or 3 different focal points: workforce triage, horizon thinking, and customizable training. Workforce triage, to put it simply, is stop the bleeding. We have industries in the state of Mississippi that desperately need people with specific skills. We need to do a better job of getting people faster to them with the skills that they need. Workforce triage has been a significant focal point for us in these first 21 months, and you will hear from Dr. Courtney Taylor momentarily, our Deputy Director for Post-Secondary Strategy, as she describes some of our triage efforts. Likewise, you'll hear from Deputy Director for External Affairs, Garrett McInnes, as he talks about some of the ARPA programs that we have created and deployed because of funding that you have made available to us and given us responsibility over. Triage, how do we meet these immediate needs and make progress? You will also hear about our second pillar, our second focal point is horizon thinking. Are we prepared for industries and new technologies that we know even now are swirling around the state of Mississippi, looking for a place to land, new projects, new opportunities? Are we prepared, and do we have the pathways and pipelines from K through 12 to community college and into our IHL institutions to provide not only the people they need right now, but the people that we'll need for those horizon opportunities? It's horizon thinking. You'll hear from Dr. Nathan Oakley, our Deputy Director for K through 12 Innovation, as he talks about career coaches. Many of you are familiar with that program. You will also hear about the significant steps we've taken surrounding career technical education and trying to reimagine what that needs to be at the K through 12 and community college level to ensure that there is a galvanized connection between the two, and that they likewise have a galvanized connection to their industry partners in their communities. That's horizon thinking. We have to pay special attention to that. And then finally, you'll hear from Dr. Taylor again, as well as myself, as we describe and discuss the final pillar being customizable training. Are we the teammate? Are we the teammate to our economic development partners? So as we go through this presentation this morning, and as you see and hear more about triage, horizon thinking, and customizable training, I hope that this will be the beginning of conversations and discussions that will allow us to better highlight the progress that we've made, but also, hear me plainly, the improvements that we need to continue to make. In our office, we employ the Kaizen theory of continuous improvement, which means that we always need to do a better job, and there's always an opportunity to do things better. We want to approach those expectations that you've given us with that in mind, that we're always looking to do things better. So I'm going to defer to my colleague, Dr. Taylor, now to come and talk a little bit more specifically about our triage program, and more specifically, our workforce enhancement training program, or funds that we now have responsibility over with our community college partners, to show you how we are attempting to attack that triage need for the state of Mississippi. Dr. Taylor.
Good morning. So might I direct your attention to my colleagues here and this nice 11-foot poster to show you kind of where we have started with this fund. This is a process flow map from our office down to every individual community college. Now, you are welcome to look at this in depth because it is enlightening. But the thing that we want you to see here is starting to understand from every level how these funds were utilized and what administrative responsibilities are required was actually a challenge. Every community college has a different way of operating, which is fantastic. And so when we started with this, what we are trying to do is first figure out where we were. Ryan talks about the Kaizen committee and continuous improvement. Where were we? Where do we need to be? That's got to get a lot simpler. Hopefully the next time we come in here, it's not an 11-foot, it's down to like 5 or 6 feet maybe, because there are some realistic requirements that we have to do as we work through these funds. But when we talk about workforce enhancement training funds or WET funds, this program is primarily where we serve adults in Mississippi through our community college training partners all over the state. And we have previously allocated these through a formula as a state. So we've said basically some version of what you did the last 3 years, this is how much money you're getting this year. So what we have adjusted and changed to is two different funding sources, or two different funding sources for the community colleges. One is what we call an allocation, where they come in and they estimate what they think they're going to need at the beginning of the year. And then they get an allocation depending on what that request looks like. Is it all approvable based on the legislation? Is it good training leading to good jobs? Things of that nature. And then the second piece is through what we call special projects. And the special projects allow us to provide funding a little bit differently as they stand up new programs, enhance programs, invest in themselves, invest in their communities. To really support workforce training efforts. Workforce training is a very complicated deal because everybody's needs in every community are kind of different. So we're trying to honor that and allow that opportunity. It is not free from challenges, so we are still working with our training providers to kind of make that program a little bit better. And to date, over the past 2 fiscal years on the allocation, we've allocated $11 to $12 million a year at the beginning of the year. And then we have allocated $22.6 million in special projects. There's a little bit extra in the account from the COVID days. So we're working through that as we speak. And that allows the colleges to operate, to work. And the biggest thing that we've had to do as we work through this process and what's going on is narrow down our focus and our attention to the high value jobs that Ryan mentioned, and moving away from what we call, realistically, we're compliance refreshers, fast food, and fire drills, and move towards skilled training for really good jobs like, production operators, welders, equipment operators, maintenance, nursing fields. It's all of this kind of gamut. And it's hard to serve every need for everyone, which is what we ask our community colleges to do every day. So as part of this funding, we're trying to narrow the focus and really work where we can get the most return on that investment. But I am going to now turn it over to Ms. Rebecca Brown from Pearl River Community College and her colleagues from Western Container, and let them talk to you a little bit about how they've been able to utilize these funds.
Hello, and thank you for letting us be here today. I am Rebecca Brown, and I serve as Dean for our workforce programs at Pearl River Community College. I am not Dr. Adam Breerwood, in case you were wondering, but he does send his regards and is at our board meeting today. I'm not here to tell you a lot of great numbers. We have big numbers and we do big things because you can't really trust what I say, because I'm somebody who eventually wants to benefit from the decisions that you make. And so I instead am going to tell you what life was like, what life is now in our workforce system, and then let somebody with a little bit more credibility who really has to live with the consequences of what we do in our training to give you a real life example of that. So our workforce system as it existed before, and I'll just briefly go there just for context of what this has meant in a change in our everyday work. It was very well intentioned, but it incentivized the wrong things. So at the end of the year, you would see a report coming from our president that would tell you Pearl River trained 6,500 individuals or Pearl River trained 8,000 individuals or 4,000 individuals. But if I had to stand up here and tell you what we trained them in, I could only tell you what the money really allowed me to do, what I was equipped to do. So I would tell you, we have great companies like Western Container, and we have companies like Lockheed Martin, we have companies like Ingalls that we serve, we have companies like Kohler Engines. Every engine made by Kohler in North America comes through Hattiesburg, Mississippi at our plant there. And then I would say for all of those great companies, we train their employees a whole lot on safety. And then if they want to leave those facilities and they want to go find jobs somewhere else, they can tell them that they're very safe, but not necessarily what skills that they have, because we didn't really give them any transferable skills. That's what's different in our everyday life now. So to train somebody on meaningful technical skills, you have to be able to have the resources that you need, which starts largely with equipment when we're talking about the world of manufacturing. Companies like Western Container have revenue streams that are attached to their equipment, so it makes sense for their profit, for their bottom line to buy that. Colleges do not have that same revenue stream attached on the workforce side of the house. There's nothing that lets me go justify, I'm going to make $1 million off of this equipment. The opposite, I'm trying to come tell you how much money I'm giving away as a result of this and how much it's benefiting somebody else. So we didn't have any equipment to do a lot of that training. We could do training that would let a lot of people fit into one room and not require a whole lot of equipment, which it turns out does not exactly replicate the 24/7 operation that our friends over here run. What's different now is I have the ability to convey those needs into, say, based on industry demand, not something I thought was a good idea, but based on industry demand, which I need to justify to you in that process. These are our relevant needs. These are timely needs. This is how it will change the lives and the career trajectories of those who live right here, work right here, and will grow their families right here. Also, we know that programs that really focus on compelling the best of us to do even better, they're wonderful. You get to take a great picture. We all get to feel really good. But what is different about the way that we are structured and how we can serve those we represent is that we can also really focus on those with the highest level of need, the least level of resources, and how to bring them into the game. So when you have those big economic development projects, they really benefit everybody. We've done this specifically several different ways in the system that now is much more flexible. It's outcome oriented. It's extremely transparent and supportive. And back to that transparent for just a moment, we had what I think is maybe the most thorough audit I have ever been through in my life this year for these workforce funds, but also strangely enough, the most enjoyable and helpful audit I have ever had in my life, because that is the nature of how things are driven now, to let us help you tell the story better. Let's help you to be accountable. Let's also have you start thinking through where there may be weaknesses in the system. So when I come back next year, it's going to look even better. And I can't tell you what that means to somebody like us. Nobody wants to read through that 11 feet of flow chart that was just up there. But there are people working with this Accelerate team that care about every single step of it. And I can tell you, any version of software that I've seen introduced to increase our efficiency or make something more effective over my last 15, 20 years in workforce, I've been asked what matters for those processes about maybe 0.5 times. So it's really nice to know that they care about those 11 feet, because that's what's going to mean the numbers that you are looking at are real and they're verifiable and they account for everything and they can spit out the reporting that is really going to matter. So specific examples, special project that we applied for with Accelerate Mississippi, because we went to visit our friends over at Western Container along with several, that excited about workforce training, along with several other local manufacturers. And we asked them to do something which is not very easy to do when people are there smiling at you, and to be very brutally honest with us about the things that we could do better, because you can't improve perfect, right? I won't tell you we're here perfect today either, because we still have a lot of improvement to make. And one thing they told us was they were able to obtain a lot of employees who had very strong electronics savvy. A lot of kids grow up now playing video games and it's more native for them, but they were really missing a lot of that in-house expertise on what I would say is good old fashioned wrenching. But the mechanical maintenance, what you may learn and helping somebody out in somebody's shop or working on the farm. And those skills that are critical and can shut down these multi-million-dollar, even billion-dollar facilities just weren't being taught locally. And we really couldn't do it because we didn't have the right resources to do so. Now, to do it, I needed to show that I was really training a whole lot of people and could reach a lot of places. So all of the employers that we have in the greater Hattiesburg area, that's one thing, but I also wanted to be able to show that we could take those same resources and deploy them demand-based where they were needed the most. So on the ground at Port Bienville, on the ground at Stennis Space Center, Jeff Davis County is getting a brand new something and it's really important to them and we need to be able to train locally. We don't need to wait to think about how we're going to create this infrastructure for 2 years to get there. I want to drive my mobile mechanical maintenance training trailer down the road, set it up and deploy it immediately. So that's what we did. That's what we asked for, this mobile mechanical maintenance training unit. They messed up and started sending us all that equipment about 6 months before we actually received our trailer. And we are really antsy, excited people. So we didn't wait to start training until we got our trailer and we started deploying our equipment to multiple places. So from June 2022 through December of this year, we already trained over 286 individuals on mechanical maintenance modules that will be transferable skills that they have with them and can take with them throughout their career and will help to qualify them for higher wages. We have more than 500 individuals already scheduled for those maintenance boot camps between now and June. A little bit of room still left on the calendar. And then when we don't have a company that is using that either on site at their facility like today, where it is located at Idaho Forest Group for training, we can also pull it up outside things like our electronics courses. So those students who are taking electronics on the credit side can do outside of those credit hours, boot camps as well to add all of those mechanical maintenance skills. So I want to introduce to you Chris Bolware, who's General Manager for Western Container. And it may have looked like I was really thirsty when I walked up here with my bottle, but it's actually because it's a prop. This may look familiar to some of you. So Chris, I'll let you take over.
All right, good morning. And thank you for letting us say a few words. So just to piggyback on what Ms. Rebecca said, I'll give you a little background. Western Container came to the Hattiesburg area about 25 years ago. So when we were looking for a specific place to build a plant, of course, you need the infrastructure, you need a great location, but you need great people and you need great partners. And PRCC was a great partner. And that's one of the reasons that we made a decision to come to the Hattiesburg area. So we knew we had great partners there. Now, up until about 2 years ago, our training programs have been very specialized. So we make 3 billion of these bottles every year in the Hattiesburg facility and send them out to the surrounding states. To do that, you need very qualified, very technical people. And we have 80 individuals making these 3 billion bottles. So our training program up to that point had been, hey, we'll send 1 or 2 individuals out of state, out of country, bring that skill set back, and then teach the rest of them. It's not really a great training model. But when we went to PRCC, and we were and they came to us actually, and we were very transparent. We're like, hey, we're sending 1 or 2 people out. We're expecting them to come back. We're expecting them to be trainers, and that's not really their forte. We need these skills to be across all 80 individuals. And this is what we need to make that happen. And being very transparent with them, they then took that information along with Accelerate Mississippi, and they have provided us with training programs, course catalogs, and equipment now that's very integral in training all 80 of those people. And that's not just a benefit of Western Container, that's a benefit of all 80 of those individuals, all 80 of those Mississippians. And now Bethany Miller, our HR manager, will kind of elaborate on that and then give you some examples of how we're upskilling our individuals and having an impact not only on our business, but on all 80 of those Mississippians.
Good morning, and thank you guys so much for your time. As people who serve your constituents, I know that hearing numbers is a wonderful thing. You guys are all on finance and economic committees, so you guys are numbers people, I assume. But hearing a personal story of one of our team members that was impacted financially and growth and upskill wise within these programs, I know will impact all of you. So about 18 months ago, we had a team member who came to us from the oil field. They started as an entry-level warehouse tech, also known as a forklift driver in nonchalant terms. And within the 18 months, through utilizing these programs that Accelerate Mississippi has allowed PRCC to create with us, he has now moved to an entry-level maintenance tech and had about a $20,000 per year, give or take, increase in wages, which is not only impacting our local economy, but also his family and the retention of that employee within the state of Mississippi, as well as upskilling. And so these programs allow us to take entry-level members of our team who maybe don't have mechanical or electrical aptitude, but they want to do better and they want to be better and they want to learn these new things. And where these trainings would not be accessible for us to send people internationally or even across the country, we can now take entry-level team members and help them upskill and grow internally. And then if they do decide to leave us for any reason, they have transferable skills. It's not just, well, I attended the safety meeting and I'm a super safe person. So we thank you guys for your support of the Mississippi Accelerate program, and it is making an impact in our local communities through the maintenance training trailer and the simulators that those provided. It allows people to have hands-on skills. I know nobody likes to sit around and look at PowerPoint, so they get to actually touch and do and experience those things and then bring those skills back to our facilities. And it helps us to continue to keep competitive wages in Mississippi and drive wage increases, because the more knowledge you have, the better that things are going to be. So. And I'll turn it back over to Ms. Rebecca.
No, you're good. So I'm gonna stay on the triage topic, but we're gonna keep this moving. We're gonna talk ARPA, which I know I've been watching. I know you've been looking through the spreadsheets that we kind of provided for you. Just a reminder, you allocated $60 million through our office of ARPA funds. I've heard some elected officials opine that ARPA is largely for critical infrastructure, you know, water, sewer, et cetera. I would argue we're building critical infrastructure. We're building roads and bridges for people through those funds to get better careers. 8 million of that was for career coaches. You'll hear plenty about that after I get done talking. $20 million was for a healthcare infrastructure program to increase capacity at a school of osteopathic medicine. That's moving on forward as well. But I really want to talk to you about the 32 million you've got here in direct training in specific populations. Because of some nuances with the law, when we put out a call for proposals from eligible entities, we asked that all proposals be transformative projects that could be completed by June 30th of this year, 2023. Now, I know ARPA is a 2026 deadline, but that was the call that we made. Also of note, healthcare being a critical piece of the training in the direct training bucket. In the law that was passed, the only eligible entities were community colleges. No four-year institutions who had healthcare programs nor K-12 could apply. In spite of those barriers, in spite of asking for a one-year program, we received applications exceeding $85 million for that $32 million. Our office took a very, very critical look at all of those applications. All of those are in front of you. Everyone who applied for those funds is on one of those spreadsheets. these are very sticky funds. Please hear me. Please hear me. The administrative burden on the grant recipient is very, very high. We took a critical look to make sure anybody we funded, number one, was going to be able to handle the administrative burden of those funds. Number two, that the thematic program that they wanted to implement was of high value and would lead to better outcomes for people. And number three, we looked to make sure they could do it quickly. ARPA is very difficult money to get out the door quickly, get out the door for good programs, and spend quickly. And we're doing all of that. Every dollar that you allocated through our Office of American Rescue Plan funds is encumbered and is going out the door and largely will be spent in the next 5 months and 3 weeks. And so I'm happy. I have already had the pleasure of sitting down with Senator Horn to talk through some grant applicants that did not receive funds. And we're meeting with those to talk through future ways that we can work together with them as an office. If you have specific projects, come find us. We'll talk to you about them. We believe we invested the limited funds that we were given in very high value programs to continue to work on that triage. The last thing I'll touch on is on the specific populations bucket. Those are high value programs that will help groups like disconnected youth, underemployed, single parents, single mothers, disabilities, people with disabilities, and people in the criminal justice system. And we're going to be tracking those outcomes and monitoring them very closely over the next 6 to 12 months.
Good morning. On the horizon thinking side of the projects we've got going, I spent 10 years at the Department of Ed and have seen kind of the record educational progress that Mississippi has made. Graduation rate at an all-time high, third grade reading rates up dramatically over the last 10 years. Mississippi's positioned for great success educationally down the road. But when we look at this concept of workforce development, the K-12 education system, all education, I would argue, is for the purpose, I would argue, of workforce development. We're positioning our people to be successful in life beyond school. And so one of the ways that we are trying to tackle that is through the deployment of career coaches into our high schools. So with that $8 million that Garrett mentioned a moment ago of ARPA funds, we released a grant application back in the summer. Applicants that could submit for funding included economic development foundations, planning development districts, WIOA regional offices, nonprofits or community organizations that had prior expertise managing federal funds. But we deployed those grants to allow for those local entities to work alongside school districts that were interested in having a coach come into their school to put coaches into high schools, to work along high school students. And we were very deliberate in that approach to ensure that the coaches were not beholden to other kind of tasks maybe within the school setting that took away from their time focused on coaching, to ensure that they were able to operate independently and to help individual students consider ideas, opportunities, potential careers beyond high school. And so when we look at the career coaching model, as I've mentioned, we opened up the application, took those in, reviewed, based on the $8 million in funding we had and the applications received, we were able to put a coach into each high school that requested a coach. Okay, so in your backup material, I think the last page of your packet includes a list of schools from our press release in August where we were planning to deploy coaches this school year. If you're a local high school that's not on that list, it is because they did not ask. We have since the summer have heard tremendous response from schools that did not initially apply. The timing was difficult in the summer. I admit that. I recognize that. But we've heard from school districts. We've heard from elected officials. We've heard from business partners that have said, how can I get a coach? So funding for career coaches is a priority for us in this current session to ensure that we're able to further the reach of the good work the coaches are doing now. But those coaches are working alongside individual students, helping them connect with post-secondary opportunities, helping them connect with business and industry for internships, for work-based learning experiences, helping students to understand that there are a lot of careers and job opportunities that exist right here in Mississippi that don't require a 4-year degree. Now, I want my doctor, my attorney, I want professional, credentialed folks. They've got to earn a 4-year degree. I recognize that. We're not disparaging 4-year degree programs at all, but recognizing the number of jobs that exist here that require different kinds of training. We need to better position students to understand the pathways to get into those jobs. But these coaches are working alongside students, working alongside parents, bringing in business and industry partners, planning college visits, industry visits, and then helping students as they approach graduation to upskill and to be positioned for success again beyond graduation. The impact that these coaches have when we start to look just over the last 3 months, October, November, December, from the time that our coaches came on board in early October, and we've continued to onboard them as we've moved through the ARPA procurement requirements with our different grantees over the last several months to ensure we're compliant on the federal side with purchasing requirements and contract requirements. But if you look at the bulleted list here between October and December, and this is also on your career coach page of your packet, over 5,000 career interest inventory website interactions with students during that time period. Over 2,400 group contacts, coaches working with groups of students, 6,000 individual contacts where coaches may be talking with students about FAFSA applications or college applications or specific interests they may have beyond high school. You can see parent contacts, college applications completed and job applications completed. And then over 500 guest speakers that have come in from local community business or industry or colleges to meet with high school students over the last several months, along with coordination of field trips out to colleges and to visit business and industry. I thought it would do you some good to hear a couple of stories of direct impact on students from one of our coaches. So I'm going to ask Jamie Moffitt, who is a career coach in Hernando High School in Senator Parker's neck of the woods up in DeSoto County, to come and just spend a few minutes sharing a couple of stories about the impact that the coaching program is having on individual students and their families. Jamie.
Good morning. I am from DeSoto County, specifically Hernando High School. And I think that I have the best job compared to you guys because I get to work with our future, those that are rising up into our workforce. So thank you so much for inviting me to come and talk. I am a nurse by trade, so education is a whole new world to me. I'm learning lots of things I had no idea about. I was looking to get back into the work field though. My youngest just started kindergarten, so I needed a job. The hospital was not really what worked for our family, so I heard from a friend from the DeSoto Economic Council, hey, we're looking for some career coaches. And I was like, what in the world is a career coach? Found out what that was. And I was like, absolutely 100%. I want to be a part of that because I don't know if you guys feel like I do. When I was in high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I needed help. I needed direction. And my parents weren't always able to help me with that. So I want to tell you a little bit about a couple of specific experiences I've had with some students that I feel like are on complete opposite ends of the spectrum. So when we were trained, our goal was to go out into the schools and expose kids to careers that are out there, prepare them for the workforce with whether that be resume writing, soft skills, just how to be personable, and to connect them to industries, colleges, whatever it was that their career that they were interested in, that they might need to pursue that. So after working with students, getting to meet some kids, I'll tell you specifically this first student that I met with, she was new to the school this year, senior. She comes from a home that has two parents that are undocumented, but she was born in the States herself. She was new and the teachers just kind of like, she always kind of hung her head and kind of had a hard shell on her. Well, I built a relationship with this student and she let me know, she's like, I need a job. Like, I need to help my mom pay the bills. Like, we are living in a trailer with no heat right now. I want to make a different life for myself once I finish high school. But most importantly, I need a job right now because we need some heat. And I was like, okay, I had just visited a company in South Haven called Future Electronics, which is a warehouse. And fortunately, they had just decided to start taking on 17-year-olds. The student was 17, hadn't quite turned 18 yet. So I set her up with an interview. And I told her, the funny thing is, like, you know, the last day of school before Thanksgiving break, high schoolers aren't coming to school. They're staying at home. So I told her, I said, look, you're having this interview over Thanksgiving break. I'm going to need you to come meet with me the day before we get out of, the day we get out of school, just so we can go over some interview skills. You're going to have to take the hoodie off. You're going to have to fix yourself up, take the earbuds out, put the phone away. So this student does not have a very good track record of coming to school. She likes to take the day off quite a bit. This student showed up that day, 7:30 in the morning, just to meet with me, fully dressed appropriately. I had a conversation with her, went over, you know, make eye contact, shake hands, put the phone away. And she was like, thank you so much. Her mom actually drove her up to the school. So I went out and met her mom that day as well and said, look, I want to help your daughter the best I can. I'm here for her, no matter whatever the support is she needs. So come to find out, I checked over the break. I checked with the lady that from HR that she was interviewing with. She said, thank you so much. This child was precious. Like, I am so glad that we have the opportunity to offer her a job. She did wonderful. To follow up with that, now we've been through Christmas break. I haven't made contact with the students since we've been back from Christmas. I emailed the HR lady yesterday and I said, Miss Kathy, how's Jalissa doing? Did she come to work? She said, yes, she is doing wonderful. I just trained her all week long and now I've put her under a specific department with someone who has taken her under their wing and she's doing awesome. And I'm like, thank you. That is so cool. So I will share another story with you. I had another student, excellent student, shows up to school every day, great grades, not a great test taker ACT wise, but you ask her to do something, she's going to do it 110%. Involved in all kinds of things. She's already got a full scholarship to run cross country at Delta State. She is dead set on being a pediatric orthopedic or a pediatric occupational therapist. So getting to know her, I was like, well, have you worked in this career field? Like, have you volunteered? Do you have a family member? How do you know that's what you want to do? And she said, I don't. It just sounds good. And I think that's what I want to do. And I said, okay, well, you realize here in Hernando, we have a company called Southern Pediatrics, and they have occupational therapy. Would you like to job shadow? And she said, I would love to. I contacted that business and they were super excited to bring our high school students in and start a job shadowing program. So I sent the student over there and she spent a day shadowing everybody in the office, and she came back and she was so excited. She said, thank you so much. This 100% confirmed. This is what I want to do. I'm making the right choice. So with that being said, without the help of Accelerate Mississippi and all the way down to the economic developers, we could not do what we do because they are the resource for us. So I got a phone call last night, I will let you know, from one of my economic developers letting me know that we are in DeSoto County going to start a paid internship for students in a career field that they think that they may want to be in, which can tell them they'll probably spend about 100 hours doing this internship. No way, this is not what I want to do, or 100% yes, I'm going into the right career field. So thank you so much for your time. I hope that those stories I shared were impactful, and thank you, Accelerate Mississippi, for what you do.
Thanks, Jamie, for the work you do with students every day. So in addition to the career coaches that are working alongside students to help them kind of chart a course forward, we also wanted to step back and, as a state, based on House Bill 1388 from last session, take a look at the K-12 and community college, both career tech and workforce programs. Try to get a sense of the outcomes that are coming out of those. So we were charged as an office to work with the Department of Ed, work alongside the community college board and the colleges to look at these programs and to ultimately, we believe, use the results from this analysis that we're nearing completion of the first phase of right now, but to use the results from that alongside labor market data and other information to look at program adjustments that may be needed. Do we have programs that are offered right now, either in K-12 or colleges, that don't lead to jobs for people? If we're spending funding as a state on programming that's not beneficial to the people participating, we need to be asking why. Right. And so we've kind of, as a disruptor to the system, have been charged with asking that why question. We're in the initial phase of that ROI analysis right now. It's a baseline inventory. It'll give us a better understanding of really what happens to students when they leave high school or when they leave community college, CTE and workforce programs. So again, baseline analysis right now, where are we as a state currently? And we want to use the results, really answer some kind of overarching questions around alignment of programs from the education programs to what labor market demands look like. Is there a long-term outcome or benefit for individuals participating in these programs? Are we seeing that they are working and then they're in high wage, high demand, good jobs? Or are they in need of government assistance as they come out of these programs? And then ultimately, what do the outcomes look like from the K-12 and the post-secondary side both? The analysis is being conducted right now. We're working alongside NSPARK at Mississippi State, our state longitudinal data system, along with the research curriculum unit at Mississippi State that does a lot of work in the K-12 space with career tech frameworks and courses, pulling data from across agencies that NSPARK has access to. And then we're conducting this analysis, not just at the statewide level, but we're also, as Ryan mentioned earlier, we're conducting this analysis by our 4 WIOA regions and our 8 local ecosystems, because we know that the demands, the outcomes, some of the needs and opportunities that exist on the Gulf Coast are very different than they are in DeSoto County or in Alcorn County or the Delta. So we're excited about this process. We're nearing completion of this. We'll be meeting in the next couple of weeks with partners from K-12 and post-secondary, and then ultimately coming back with what we believe will be policy recommendations and suggestions for consideration coming out of this analysis as we complete the first phase and then continue to do this going forward. We don't believe we can do this one time, determine that this is exactly what it needs to be, set it and forget it. We believe this is kind of an ongoing process where we look, analyze, view of continuous improvement. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan at this point.
Thank you, Dr. Oakley. And I know that we're starting to wane on time, so I want to be respectful of your time and move into our last pillar or focal point that I've referenced at the beginning of our presentation, customizable training. And the question that we were always and are always asking ourselves are we the appropriate teammate positioned to help our friends and our partners in the economic development community? And there are 2 different areas that I would say that we are being asked to serve as that partner and that teammate. And I will again also tell you that this pillar, this focal point is one that we want to make significant strides and improvements this year, this legislative session, as well as this fiscal year, to ensure that we are always moving forward, improving as that partner to our economic development friends. First of all, the first half of that is where funding is concerned. Last legislative session, you gave us responsibility over Mississippi Works dollars. Those are traditionally dollars that have been used in economic development projects. But since the law changed and you put that responsibility within our office, we felt it was only right and to do due diligence to review the process and procedure associated with those funds, which we are currently reviewing now, to make sure that as we use dollars for workforce initiatives associated with economic development projects, that we're using those dollars at the maximum effectiveness. And that means that we're being consistent. That means understanding specifically when we are needed to be at the table to discuss projects as they come to the state of Mississippi, whether they be new projects or projects that are expanding existing industry. So we look forward to continuing to give you updates as we make those adjustments to Mississippi Works dollars, again, to improve the overall effectiveness and accuracy of the dollars we're spending to make sure that they're being used for value, high value training opportunities with our economic development partners. I will also say that since the inception of our office in 21 months' time, our team has been involved in one form or another in 48 different named projects. So 48 different of individual economic development projects. That's not 48 individual meetings. That's 48 named projects in which we have participated. So that means whether it's Justin Hall in Marshall County, who we worked with a great deal, Jim Flanagan up in DeSoto County, a CDF and the good folks in Tupelo with David Rumbarger and Shane Homan, or ADP in the Hattiesburg area with Todd Jackson and Chad Newell, Pablo Diaz over in Vicksburg, or even with our state organization, MDA, working with Laura Hipp and Bill Cork. We work daily with these organizations to ensure that we're at the table at the time that we need to be at the table to make sure that the resources, again, that you've given us responsibility for are deployed accurately, correctly, to increase the chances that we can grow existing industry, as well as have a better chance of attracting new and transformative industry to the state of Mississippi. At this time, I'd like to be able to share in the waning moments, if I can, beg your pardon. I want to share a short video with you to see the message that we're trying to purvey and what we're going to be trying to advocate for this year. Mississippi's story is one of resiliency. It's a story about incredible people overcoming obstacles they face every day to do amazing things. Mississippi has an amazing story, but we've got to do a better job telling it.
My name is Avery Toops, and I'm a sheet metal mechanic at Ingalls. I work for the largest military shipbuilding company in America, producing nearly 70% of the Navy's warships. As a sheet metal mechanic, I'm part of a team that's building the finest, safest ships in the world. I'm more than just my job. I'm not just making a living, I'm making a difference, all while building a stronger economy for my community.
My name's Andrew Bodie. I'm a manufacturing engineering manager here at Northrop Grumman in Iuka. So as a manufacturing engineer, we define the processes that allow our technicians to build products for our customers. By defining good processes and building good parts and equipping our workforce to do those things, we're continuing to bring high quality work to Iuka, Mississippi. Originally, I'm from Maryland. I moved to Mississippi to go to Mississippi State University. Me and my wife moved off to Little Rock, but then we're quickly drawn back to the high quality jobs that we have in Iuka today, building these awesome products.
My name is Janet Cornelison, and I am a program manager here at Northrop Grumman. As program manager, I'm the main interface for the customers for the projects that we work on here. I'm responsible for proposing new work, executing new contracts, and bringing new business into the facility, and that leads to new jobs creation for my economy. My career path as a program manager does require a degree and several years of experience. I'm lucky that I've been able to get that training here. Northrop Grumman is a place that allows you opportunities. I've been allowed a lot of opportunities that I might not have been had it been closed off.
My name is Edward Carranza, and I'm a distribution engineer for Mississippi Power. We build infrastructure for our communities that we serve. And by doing that, it promotes growth and development, whether residentially, commercially, or these industrial customers for our communities. So being somebody who was raised in Gulfport, went to Gulfport High School, went to Gulf Coast Community College, and went to Mississippi State University, and had that opportunity to come back home and work in my own backyard that I played in is an experience like no other, and I love it.
My name is Malik Smith. I am from Polkville, Mississippi, and I work as a service technician for Stribling Equipment. I had no idea that this industry existed. I knew about mechanicking, but not to this extent. It's just about like being a doctor. The doctor is always going to have a human to work on. We're always going to have a machine to work on. We use machines every day. Machines keep building buildings, our highways, schools.
My name is Chaucer Taylor. I am a machining specialist here at PACCAR. I am the overseer of numerous machines. I make sure that each machine is produced in quality engines. And I am currently enrolled at East Mississippi Community College, and I'm taking their system-based automation and controls technology program. I love the way it incorporates a lot of different fields that I can branch into.
My name is Matthew Addy. I'm a technical support analyst with PACCAR. I provide everybody with the tools that they need necessary to do their jobs from a technical perspective. Computers, workstations, monitors, all that good stuff. Make sure things stay up and running. I went to the computer networking technology program or information systems technology program at East Mississippi Community College. There we learned a lot about PC components, troubleshooting methods, networking, server management, maintaining, and other places you find IT guys who are not as personable. And I think that that's something that I do bring to the table.
My name is Kyle Reeder. I'm an on-site superintendent. I work for Innovative Construction Management here in Oxford. So we're here at the Manning Center, which is at Ole Miss. This will be a facility that will be primarily used by the football team, but I think if it aids in their success in the the season, we all get to enjoy it, right? So I came into construction kind of an indirect way. I was an art teacher for about a year and learned that education wasn't the thing I wanted to be in. I actually wanted to get my hands dirty. With commercial construction, you get to see some materials that you don't often see in residential. So it's a good challenge, and every day there's something new.
Your story is our story, and we all have the responsibility to tell that story better. Again, I want to thank you for your time and your attention. I appreciate the willingness to come and listen and to observe, and certainly would yield back to the senators for any questions, comments. And please understand that we're willing and open to discussion even after today. If there are ways in which we can improve what we do in our call to attack those expectations with great energy and fervor, we want to do that. So thank you so much for allowing us to come and share with you how each and every day we attempt to do that.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you to your team, and a special thank you for the people not in your office who made the trip here today to give those personal stories. In my capacity, as chairman, I'm fortunate to get to hear those stories pretty regular. And I made the comment that I thought it might be good for other people in the legislature to hear the same. I've heard other stories, but I want to just quickly, I know a couple people have some questions. I want to turn it to my chairman over here, Senator Harkins, if he has anything first.
No, I appreciate the work you're doing. I know you started with absolutely an empty office and you've ramped up pretty quickly. I think that, in my estimation, I think as far as you've come, as quick as you come, I look forward to the next year or two to see the strides you make. And some of my questions, I think I'll probably save for later because I want to hear some of the answers, but I think I'm still trying to kind of work through stuff with some of my local folks before it's more local.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And I know Senator Horn laid the groundwork for a lot of what's being done in economic development in the state. He was my predecessor in this thing. I know he has some questions as well, so I'll open it up to Senator Horn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Ryan, I would join my colleagues in saying that we appreciate how you all have tried to ramp up and the amount of work you've been able to get accomplished in a very short period of time. I want to ask specifically about the career coaches. Because as I look at the list, and I've traveled Mississippi pretty well. I know most areas of the state, and for the life of me, I cannot find any schools in Hinds County, certainly, and the Mississippi Delta that have career coaches. Southwest Mississippi, I don't see much there. And so how did you all get the word out about this opportunity? And are you troubled by the list? I mean, it's a great list for those who are on the list, but for those who are not on the list, it doesn't look that rosy.
Yes, sir. So I'll address one portion, then allow Dr. Oakley maybe to address the methodology by which we communicated this out to the world. But I will say this, that if you look at the map, and we have a map in our office where we have pinpointed where coaches are located, and there are dozens. We see that. And we've actually been communicating with those areas since the initial program was rolled out to say there's still opportunity. There'll be more opportunity that we are hopeful for. And so the communication has already begun with those schools to make sure. Some of them did not hear, some of them did and chose not to participate. There's no doubt that we can make better improvements in how we communicate the program to them, but suffice it to say, in those areas where their career coaches are absent, communication has already begun to ensure that we can get coaches into those communities as well.
Yeah, I mean, because if we're ever going to get off the bottom, those deserts that you spoke of have got to be watered.
Yes, sir.
So I want to just keep that notion in front of you. And the issue, and I love my community colleges, but you spoke about nimbleness and about working with other qualified entities. Is that a priority of yours?
being nimble and agile is certainly a priority for us and certainly understanding the partners that we have. And I know Hines Community College is here. I think Dr. Vasek's here in the room this morning. We're working with community colleges and many understand the need for improvement as well. How do they become more nimble and agile to respond quickly? So it is always going to be a priority for us to improve how we as an office can respond quickly, but also encouraging our partners and educational entities that they too need to be more agile and nimble to respond quickly to the needs of industry and to their constituents.
But you do have a willingness to work with other qualified entities other than community colleges.
Yes, sir. And we do.
You're willing to break off a little piece for the other qualified entities.
I think if we are to be successful as a state, any entity that has a similarly situated mission and has a track record of success and willingness, we're absolutely willing to work.
And on that note, Jobs for Mississippi Graduates is a 30-year-old successful organization that is doing some of the things that these career coaches are doing. And I don't see them on the list. Is there a reason for that?
Well, and I have to defer maybe to Garrett on this. We have had multiple conversations with them. In fact, recent conversations will continue to do that. I can't speak as of right now to the specifics of their absence on the list, but I'd be happy to get that information to you.
And one final question or point. The staff of Accelerate Mississippi itself, is it reflective of the state?
It is, sir. It is. In fact, of our ecosystem coordinators, we have 10 stationed around the state, those 8 ecosystems. We were very purposeful to find individuals that live within those communities, that understand those communities, and absolutely have developed trust with those communities. So we've been very mindful of the kind of professional that we brought on to serve in those capacities, as well as our internal office here in Jackson. I think anytime you've spent with us as an office, you'll see a great amount of diversity, both in where the communities from which they come, but also the experience that they've had professionally.
And finally, you and Garrett mentioned that you're going to have some further conversations down the road with those organizations that were not successful in this September round. So where are you in that process?
I think that those conversations, I think have even happened within the last couple of weeks and have scheduled for more conversations. The idea is, and this goes to our Kaizen philosophy, if we ourselves are holding us to a standard that we're trying to find ways to improve, then we're trying to help our partners too. Applications for funding that may have had a good, perhaps the foundation was good, perhaps we were missing information, or the information was misapplied. We want to make sure that we're helping to make improvements so that those applications that do have merit can move forward in the future if more funding is provided.
And do you have any anticipation that more funding is coming down the pike this spring, perhaps?
Well, we would certainly entertain any
comment on that.
Please.
It's
bunch of money, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
a whole bunch of money.
This was basically, the way I say it's kind of a pilot program to see if this would be effective. And I have been extremely pleased with the effectiveness so far. I see the deficiencies in the school list here. And so the goal this year is to ask for $16 million instead of $8 million for this program. And I'm working to try to find a way to perpetually fund that, because I don't want to just do this with one-time money. I want to find a way to make this be a priority going forward, because this is indeed important. And to another question you had earlier about the ability to work with other entities in other legislation that we're working on, that I'm working on right now, we want to give the office the ability to work uniquely with not just the public sector, but within the private sector too. And so I would love for them to be able to accept donations or whatever we might call it, to come in there, because I do think Container Stores, other stores that are seeing a benefit from this, not stores, but corporations, they are excited about this. And it is absolutely refreshing to have not the people in this room, because we get excited about silly stuff. But when the business and industry out there is excited, I think we're making moves in the right direction. And so I, promise as always to work with you on that. And, again, appreciate your work in the past. And I know I've got a couple more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Harkins, I'm gonna recognize you first.
Like you kind of broached the subject. Who manages the day-to-day career coaches? And I think I'm asking this from the perspective of the local, like in counties like maybe Hines, Rankin, Madison, DeSoto, Jackson County, where you have large kind of variety of employers and type of industry. Is it the ecosystem manager or who manages those career coaches?
So as a part of the grants that were submitted, for instance, Three Rivers Planning Development District, it's a large grantee in the northeast part of the state. They've got 70 coaches or so. As a part of their grant application, they have a couple of full-time career coach managers that are working alongside the coaches, helping to provide training and resources for them, working in partnership with our ecosystem coordinators and with Lori Nail, our program manager for the Career Coach Project. Robin here at South Mississippi Planning Development District for this region has a similar structure. To answer your question about communication, when we released the application back in the summer, I shared with the Department of Ed, it went out via email to all schools and districts in the state to let them know there was a grant opportunity available, how they could apply. We had the local grant applicants. Many of them hosted webinars with our local partner school districts to invite them to participate. And then I spoke directly to the superintendents at a summer conference back in July on a panel. I had an opportunity to share the grant opportunity with them. And so we've heard, again, many times since we started this of growing interest in other parts of the state. So we're excited by that.
I'll just piggyback off of that. I know I've had meetings with Jackson County. Jackson County has a model where they do have a supervisor over their program. They feel strongly they would like to keep that supervisor in that position. I think as we are putting this model together across the state, we want to look to counties like Jackson County that have been doing things like this and take those cues and decide what we need to do in that.
Yes, sir. We agree wholeheartedly.
Right. And so I know Senator Butler, you had a question. Senator Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is kind of piggybacking on Senator Horn. I'm from down in Southwest Mississippi, and I don't see nobody down in Southwest Mississippi on this. And I understand that you say that y'all are doing all you can to make sure that, the folks down in that area of the state know what's going on. But are there any other ideas or things that you think that you can do to make sure that we, be a part of that? Because again, when other parts of the state continue to prosper, and then our area continue not to kind of be stagnant, and when those opportunities present themselves, by all means, we like them to know kind of what's going on also.
Yes, sir. And I understand. And we certainly have every intention to not just be consistent with the messaging, but to increase the frequency of the messaging to make sure that we're sending the same information to requests for applications for career coaches with our partners in Southwest Mississippi, but we're going to do it more frequently. I will also say, since the time that initial application went out, we did not have an ecosystem coordinator in what we call Ecosystem 7, which is in your district. We do now. Crystal Culver now lives in Southwest Mississippi and is our teammate. And it has certainly been at multiples of the career coach meetings to ensure that she understands what we're doing programmatically and how she can get that message out more repeatedly in her communities as well. So I think by both of those mechanisms, we should be able to increase the likelihood of getting coaches into your district.
Okay, I would like to have her name and contact information because we like to know who she is. Now, we talk about the coaches in those areas. Is that one per school district? I mean, how do you do that?
I think I'll let Dr. Oakley answer that.
In an ideal setting, a coach is going to work with about 250 students. And so there are some places where a school applied, a large high school maybe applied, and they've got a couple of coaches. There are places where there's a couple of small schools that are geographically close to each other, and they might be sharing a coach.
Okay. It is based on the population of the school. And you said, so were there any schools that applied that were denied?
Don't believe we had any schools that applied back in the summer that were denied. We've had schools that have asked since then, but we didn't have additional funding at that point.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you, Senator Butler, for being here. One of the reasons that we did this meeting And the reason that when I announced it multiple times on the floor, I invited not just the members of this committee and the finance committee to be here, I invited the entire Senate to be here because, you know, it's an opportunity for you to now go back to your community and tell them, what's going on and how they can become a part of that. I know I first saw Senator Bryan, and then after that, I see Senator Barrett too, but Senator Bryan, you're asked for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It appears to me that we have spent tens of millions of dollars of the taxpayers' money on this. And there's discussion that we would continue to spend even more tens of millions of dollars of the taxpayers' money. My opinion, and I think the opinion of most people, is the money was very well spent and the citizens are better off at the end of the day after this program than we were before it. But, you know, there are alternative uses for this money. We could have used it to pay down the state debt. Instead of this ongoing program, we could reduce the state income tax or even abolish it. Or we could send checks out randomly to the citizens, have some sort of tax rebate. But it would seem to me that this was a better use of the money than doing that. Although you hear the discussion, maybe other people differ, but these are things that the government can do. In this particular case, working with the private sector, the government, and the private sector are not at odds with each other. They're pulling in the same direction. There are arguments around the fringe about who should do what, you know, but the cooperative effort seems to me to be a very fine thing. And I would say also, Mr. Chairman, there are some people that think that this is simply not the role of government. And just speaking for myself, I'm much more concerned about something that's practical and works and improves a lot of the people of the state than some philosophical argument about the proper role of the government. And as Hayden Miller used to say at this point, my question is, don't you agree with me?
After hearing that question a number of times, my answer is yes, I do agree with you. And one advantage I think of this committee, and I think what I've tried to portray in my role in this is, in my view, not a political committee. We have plenty of committees that get into politics on issues and things like this, but I see this as a people and a future committee where we're hopefully making decisions here that in the event that each and every one of us in this room is not reelected, will provide a benefit years down the road that will be important for all of us. You know, so we will. Well, and even though we may have people in this room that we may feel one way or the other on that, you know, it's that is the reality of it. But Senator Barrett, you had a question as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. To echo the gentleman asking about Southwest Mississippi and quite frankly, for the whole state that lacks coaches for lack of applications, I understand. How so we can address this with our areas? How are these being, are they emailed? Are they physical mailed? Are there telephone communications or?
Yes, sir. So my understanding certainly is that emails were sent. Obviously, I think Dr. Oakley mentioned the Department of Education and that they helped us in disseminating that information out to all the districts. I know that phone calls also were made. I don't know that phone calls were made to every district, but I know that subsequent conversations took place on phone and also through our ecosystem coordinators to try to, again, blanket the state with the proper information to give instruction as to how, if you have an interest, how you can apply and have access to it. And we will, as I say, continue in that frequency and consistency of that message to make sure schools know they have the opportunity.
And they can contact you now and get placed on some sort of list.
Yes, so they can contact our office directly. Our website has all of our phone numbers and email addresses, certainly each ecosystem coordinator as well. But I'll make sure that Dr. Oakley and Lori Nail will make sure those listservs are available to the message. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Senator Barrett. I see Senator Sparks has some questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the WET funds, do I understand now that any special project application like what was described will go through Accelerate?
Yes, sir.
And as far as the ARPA, very briefly, you had two detailed charts of $82 million approximately of ARPA request, and you granted about 31 million. Does that sound about right?
I think that's accurate. Yes, sir.
I see that we have one page that relates to training grant applications, direct training. I think that makes sense to me. But what are wraparound services for the other 10 million?
So as we have made our way around the state of Mississippi, and believe me, I have traveled extensively. This is my home. I was familiar with it before this job. I'm even more familiar with it now. One of the things that routinely kept coming up with our conversations with employers as well as community leaders is in some cases, it wasn't direct training needs that they had. They had great relationships with their community colleges or their CTE programs. It's simply that this person did not have reliable transportation to get from home to that place of training or to a place of employment. In some cases, they did not have access to reliable and affordable childcare during non-traditional hours. So if a single mother wanted to take advantage of a training program, she simply couldn't because working two jobs and those training programs traditional during the day, she would need to have opportunities in the evening to engage in those training courses in their community college or go to work. And so these are what we call domino factors. And those domino factors continually arose during our initial conversations. And so wraparound services are working with nonprofit organizations to try to help to take those obstacles out of the pathway that would normally allow someone to take advantage of those opportunities.
Okay, and that makes sense for almost everybody that got a grant except the Department of Corrections. I can ask this question out of committee, I guess, but I would like to have a little bit of detail. We gave $4 million to the Department of Corrections for wraparound services.
Yes, sir. We did have a significant partnership with the Department of Corrections in another context. But of course, work with them on a weekly basis to try to find more opportunities to collaborate.
Thank you. And one last question. I see there are 3 reviewers. Is that the process of how you arrived at, you got a grant, you had 3 different people that scored the application?
Yes, sir. I apologize for interrupting. We had internal to our office a review by our team, but we've also been working specifically with ARPA. We've been working with Horn to try to make sure that we're doing due diligence and making sure we're in line both with federal regulations as well as the state regulations. So there's been multiple filters through which this has traveled.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
He's done a great job.
And I'll share Senator Sparks too, that if you remember last year, I appreciate your work, and we set up a deputy commissioner of workforce development within the Department of Corrections, who is now kind of a partner with the Office of Workforce Development. And, as we kind of go through this process more and more, I'm looking more and more for natural partners within other areas of our government that receive workforce dollars, because what I'm learning from Ryan's work is that we now have better oversight, better management, and a plan. And to the wraparound service kind of question, I know Senator Boyd, through her work out of session, did exhaustive work on what we can do to try to help workers who are struggling, to get to work or keep their children, that kind of thing. And she has some legislation that'll be coming with that. And that continues to be an issue that kind of gets brought into the same nexus here, but it's all part of the goal. And I think, years from now, this may be one of the most important offices that we have within state government in actually, achieving results that we want to see. Senator Boyd, since I mentioned your name, that's your segue to right into a question.
I want to go back for just a second. When this process was started, I remember y'all identified over 50 different entities, agencies that had some aspect to do with workforce development. Have we been able to pare that down any, or what are we trying to get them to funnel their work through you? Kind of tell me about that.
Sure. So yes, in the initial stages, and especially when those expectations were set, there was a desire to reduce redundancy and duplication. And I would say arguably before this office was created, before I came into this role, there were glimpses of successes in workforce strategy development and deployment around the state, but it wasn't consistent and it wasn't, in my opinion, as focused as it needed to be. Since the inception and the deployment of the office, I would say that we have worked with a great many of those organizations to try to collaborate in a much more productive way. And in times that has required some tough conversations that we have to have. I think any responsibility that we're giving over funding that goes to specific program areas, we certainly have been able. You saw with wet funds, I think that we have greatly reduced waste and a time in that process to try to make sure those dollars are being deployed effectively as quickly as possible. I think that was a great collaboration with our community college board, our individual community colleges. Anytime we have authority over funds, we're able to do that more quickly. Anytime that we don't have the authority over funds, and I'm certainly not advocating that we do, but those entities, we have had multiple conversations and will continue to show and encourage that collaboration. It makes no sense if we've got multiple programs that essentially do the same thing and have that buckshot approach when we can be much more laser focused.
And I would just say this as an encouragement, as I talked to an agency the other day, if you see, please make sure that all of our doors are always open. I know the chairman's door is always open to you, but if we need to work with those other agencies at your request, please let us know, because we can only fix what we know about. And I will say that very specifically on some of those particular issues. So, and I know you're very good to communicate with the chairman, but if any of us can also help on that, because we all need to be working together to fix, but we can't fix what we don't know about.
Yes, ma'am.
Also too, I appreciate the work in doing, and I will continue to ask y'all to do this, because those barriers and we do have a huge number of our women that are participating in the workforce. They are the backbone. In many industry instances, in these particular industries, we have higher workforce participation rate of these mothers and women than they do even in many places across the country. So I would continue to ask y'all to please do this. And if I can be of help on that particular issue, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
And with that, I think, the lunch hour is approaching here. One more question or comment.
Mr. Chairman, I beg the indulgence of everyone. I think I'm right about this, and I'm not sure, but I noticed that a huge amount of the workforce, the career coach money went to Three Rivers Planning and Development District. And I think this is what happened. I think early on, a number of years ago, Three Rivers started placing career coaches in schools in and around their area. I think a lot of the funding for that came from Toyota. I think it was a successful program, and there was increasing demand so that school districts and areas close to Three Rivers were beginning to get there, and then Three Rivers had experience doing this. I say that not as an excuse for other areas of the state not having it, but as an explanation of what I think happened. And that program that Three Rivers promoted, I think has led to this increased statewide program. But Toyota played a major role in that. And if Toyota hadn't been there to help, I'm not sure we'd be where we were today. And Toyota wouldn't be where it was if Interstate 22 wasn't there. And Interstate 22 wouldn't be there unless years ago someone built 4-lane US 78 to something approaching interstate standards. And the purpose of all this, Grant, is to show the long, long tail of investment and the long, long tail of infrastructure, whether it's physical infrastructure or investing in human infrastructure. And somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, but I think that is the explanation for why such a huge amount of the money went to Three Rivers.
I would agree, and I want to thank you for your help years ago to set Highway 78 up and actually get it started.
Actually, they did that before I got here. Hard to imagine.
So with that, again, thank you, Thank you to particularly the people we mentioned before, and motion we adjourn.
Thank you.